There are a whopping 228 player cards in this box, 16 of which are signature cards. You can blame Lily Chen for that. There is a single copy of 4 brand new weaknesses, leaving 208 cards for deck building. 11 are neutral cards broken down into a single permanent, 3 that come in pairs, and 4 identical doggos. There are a total of 115 class cards at an average of 23 per class, most of which come in orderly pairs with these exceptions. Every class has a single copy of a permanent. The rogues have 3 exceptional cards, one of which is 2 levels of the same relic. The seekers have a single copy of their researchable card and 1 copy each of the 4 potential upgrades. Experience-wise, there are very few 0-level cards, with only 2 or 3 non-permanents per class. Which is because there are 82 of these gold multi-class cards, which divide neatly into 41 pairs, some of which are different levels of the same card. Where do you want to start? Let's start with the weaknesses. The theme of which is restricting certain types of actions, so if you take one of those actions, then you can't repeat it or any other of the named actions that turn. We love anything that makes you think and plan rather than just hits you over the head with arbitrary damage. Their burden varies according to your investigator's role. If your primary clue gatherer has their investigate action restricted, this is much more serious than having their fight or evade action shut down. And note how the primary actions of fight, move and investigate are all spread out over different weaknesses so you aren't immediately crippled. They get better, as rather than the cliched double arrow, you have to use healing to get rid of them, not something found on your list of basic actions. But just as in nature, the antidote is found with the poison, and there are healing cards for everyone, except rogues. Screw those guys. Although we try not to give our personal opinions round here, these are great game design. Moving on to the grey cards, permanent neutrals are nothing new, but now we have a way to start the campaign with experienced cards. Although 2 trauma will certainly bite. Let us know in the comments below what card or cards you think are worth such a price. Now we have a chaos token redraw that only takes up the body slot. Extra ally slots for creatures, of which there aren't that many other than the usual dogs and cats. An event that gives cumulative rewards dependent on the classes of card you have in play. And 4 copies of the same neutral card, which we haven't seen in a while. Sled dogs are creatures that take less slots than they should and help with your moving or fighting. Sadly, we don't have time or even willpower to go through all the cards, but here are some highlights that stood out. Each class gets a single permanent to be purchased at deck creation that gives quite a hefty bonus, but without the trauma penalty thankfully. Guardians get a discount on first turn item setup. Seekers get a deck size increase and now draw 2 cards per upkeep and discard 1. Remember, you can't choose to discard a weakness. Rogues get a deck size reduction but can't have more than 1 copy of regular cards. Great for reliving those single core box days, eh? Mystics get an experience cost reduction for upgrading but an increase for purchasing new cards. Perfect for those that can plan their deck's evolution before they begin. And survivors get their own personal nightmare mode by chucking away a third of their deck on turn 1. This isn't optional either, so you may chuck away your scavengings. Coming around much sooner than we anticipated is a community-designed card. These are usually done at the in-person Arkham Knights events in the US, but this one was created on a live stream as part of 2020 Gen Con. It is always fascinating to see what the finished product is after it has been cleaned up and refined during playtesting. We love the exile mechanic and were pleased to see an upgraded fire extinguisher in this expansion. But any new players are probably confused right now as the exile rule doesn't appear in the Learn to Play guide. It doesn't appear in the rules reference, or even the FAQ. It originally appeared in the Dunwich Legacy and certain subsequent products, but it looks like a major screw up as everyone forgot to put it on the rule sheet. Let's hope the revised core box has a revised rulebook which finally removes this issue once and for all. back to the Seeker's Unidentified card. This only has a single copy of the base card, and as you must have the untranslated card in your deck to upgrade from, this makes the process take twice as long. Here is our second ever footwear card, and it gives a static bonus and a movement effect just like its predecessor. And hey look, if it isn't an experienced Henry 1, a gambling card that is easy to understand and fun to play? Whatever next. Another rogue card with choices! We love these variable effect cards that were a highlight of the Circle Undone cycle. They definitely give you much greater agency, and as a rogue you should have no trouble affording them. Speaking of rogues, it looks like they may have one of the wordiest cards ever at 8 lines of game mechanics. As long as cards like this are the exception, not the rule, we are totally fine with it, particularly as this new rogue equivalent to teamwork is so good. Composures have returned with a higher level version of these skill booster style cards. If you thought they were pretty powerful before, they now give a static bonus to 2 stats, cost 0 resources, and are much hardier. As well as having double the icons so you can commit your second copy to a skill test. Yes, the Mystic ones are just as focused on spell tests. They do still start in your deck, so there is no guarantee they will be available early game when you need them, and at 3 XP you can't have them in your starting deck. Or can you? As well as the composures, you will see other familiar cards from previous cycles in different experience levels. Each faction has a card that improves with every different class you control, and they all have a unique ability. The Rogue event gains more resources, and the Mystic asset has more charges, for example. And don't forget, a multi-class card counts as all of its classes at all times. So if you are considering a gold asset with 2 or even 3 icons, then these get significantly better. Something that would have been a set if it weren't for those meddling kids, we mean rogues, are these variable skill cards. They gain icons for 2 skills equal to your investigator's values. And note, it doesn't say printed or base skill either. So that's another reason to grab some composures, even if the Guardian card is the only one to line up perfectly. Will we see a rogue one in future? Let's hope so, as they need all the willpower help they can get. Instead, they get this one here. Similar but not quite. This card is pretty reliable in Jenny, especially Dark Horse Jenny, or certain investigators when making willpower tests. Or for anyone crazy enough to take Wendy into combat. But is it really going to do better than an unexpected courage on average? As far as investigators go, there are definitely cards here that support their core gameplay. Daniela has some hit me cards so she can trigger her reaction ability or use her wrench. Ironically though, not the card actually titled hit me, however. Lily has some non-firearms cards for combat. Cheeseface has plenty of movement options. Bob definitely has either items or other cards that affect items. We are quite enamoured by Black Market, it is true to say. And Norman? Well, Norman has a 5 in intellect and a 4 in willpower, so cards are pretty much irrelevant to him. Put some spells in, and give him the new Grounded. Mystic card draw is now a thing, apparently. Moving on to the elephant in the buffet, gold cards. If you experience these first time round and still have recurring nightmares about those sprawling FAQ entries, then fear not, as everything has now been simplified. Chances are, if your main class matches up with one of the icons on a multi-class card, you can shove it in your deck and forget about it. This is even true for the level 0 gold cards and the 5 investigators in this box. If your primary class doesn't match but you have access to a second class and the card is within your level, you are also good to go. It is only if you have a limited access to certain classes, like these Dunwich investigators, that you will need to keep careful count of how many of those are out of class cards. But gold cards are great. We have events as well as assets now, and there are plenty of items to keep Bob happy, plenty of spells to keep Norman happy, plenty of non-firearms hitty sticks for Lily, and everyone loves discounts, and allies, lots of lovely damage and horror absorbing meat shields. Lots of these are upgradable too, as well as all these level 0 and level 1 cards to help fill out the new investigators and their class switching upgrade paths.